ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another exciting edition of the weekly Ergo AMA. I am your host, Daniel Friedman, and with me, now I'm not gonna start it like that. I was just trying to do like a straight face. I can't do a straight face. Okay, just sorry, not sorry. Hey everybody, welcome to our weekly AMA. Sorry, we're a little late this week. Joe's watch broke, and that's the only watch we have for the entire Ergo Foundation. Now we had some technical difficulties, but anyway, great to have you all here. Say hi to everybody, Joe.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Hi, everybody. Looking forward to questions.
Indeed, indeed. Oh, and hey, I see more of Joe's furniture today. That is really cool. Yeah, you can see the chair. Nice chair, Joe. Good choice of decor. I'm a leather man myself, brown leather. Anyway, we will talk about Ergo decor later, Ergo decorative tips later. But now let's get to our weekly updates. All right, from my end, had several good meetings regarding different projects, potentially moving to Ergo or actually doing Ergo integration. I spoke with a DID platform, spoke with a couple of gaming platforms, spoke with a couple other projects. So these are projects that are already launched on Cardano and on Ethereum. And we are basically negotiating bringing their tech over to Ergo or integrating Ergo since they're basically multi-chain into what they're doing. It's really exciting because this is part of that cross ecosystem adoption that I've always talked about, this commercial adoption, and it's really good to know. It's really good to see these projects being interested in coming to Ergo and actually being proactive about it. So again, some of you might know who these are. I'm not gonna make any announcements just yet. This is an announcement of an announcement. Sorry, it is, but it is. Once these relationships are solidified and we have a date, we will let you know about who's coming. But again, it's not a secret. I just don't want to make too much buzzing about it. The next item that we're continuously working on, guys, is our exchange integration. I know this is an eager subject for a lot of people. Again, at this point, the ball is in the exchange's court. We're basically just helping their integration team finalize building the Ergo wallet and showing them how to transact with it. So again, we're actively or proactively trying to get an ETA or a listing ETA. Hopefully they'll happen really soon. I'm also starting the process with one more exchange. Again, we're in the beginning of that process right now, so it might be a bit of a long runway, but again, we are putting all that we've got into this. And again, I can tell you what kind of hoops we had to go through when we just launched Cardano and we were getting Cardano listed in exchanges. It's this is nothing. I mean, it's kind of sad, but this is nothing. We had to go through a lot of sleepless nights and just a lot of different hoops to really get things going and get Cardano listed. So I think Ergo, especially after our first year one exchange listing, is going to be a lot smoother because there's going to be a template that we can transfer across exchanges. So again, bear with us and we will prevail here. One more item that I've been actively discussing with the community is the NFT convention coming up in Las Vegas. So of course, Zengate is going to be there. We're still going to be talking to the Ergo Foundation as well to see if we can get some representation there. That's, we'll let you know once we have, once we reach to a consensus on that. But I personally think it would be a great thing to have the Ergo Foundation there. And also, what I'd like to do is I'd like to have kind of an Ergo, like Ergo land there, where we have all these different projects that are Ergo projects in the same place, and Zengate and the EF, and if they join us, and just to kind of do our thing, because the convention is going to be really cool. There's going to be a lot of cross-chain action there. It's not just going to be Cardano and Ergo. It's going to be there's going to be Ethereum people. There's a lot of people there. So I think a lot of potential friends to be made and people to be onboarded onto the Ergo ecosystem. So I'm really looking forward to that, and really looking forward to working with some of the projects that we've already agreed that they would join us. But we still do have a few available slots for projects to also join us. So again, guys, put thought into this, but I would really like to see us do this, because this is part of this is part of our marketing strategy. What we need is to be out there. What we need is to put faces and people to the tech and to the community. And I know a lot of people in the Ergo community that you like to stay anonymous, which is fine. Or people just kind of like to do things remotely, which is also fine. But guys, at some point, we have to prove that Joe is not just a computer generated image. It's like the collective consciousness of the Cardano or the Ergo. That was a Freudian slip, of the Ergo ecosystem. He is a real man. And one of these days we will get him out. And Joe, you're saying that you might come out to the NFT con, right?
Yeah, I'll be there.
But hey, we got Joe coming. Okay, so you guys have to come too. All right. Anyway, we'll be talking more about this. If you're interested in showcasing your project there, please reach out to me. I made a Telegram group for different projects that are that could potentially be participating in this. I'm also going to be setting up showcases in the big stand there, because we're gonna have one big stand at the convention for Zengate, and like I said, hopefully for the Ergo Foundation. And there I hope to showcase pretty much everything that Ergo has to offer, even projects that don't choose to get themselves a booth. Maybe we can showcase some of the functionality in the big booth. Maybe get some people to interact with them. Even do some fireside chats. I'd love to do that as well at the booth. We can even do them remotely if some of you guys can't make it. I know some of you guys don't, this is going to be in the US. Some of you guys can't make it out to the US, so we could do remote fireside chats. But I really think that this kind of interaction is going to be a big plus for us. I keep going back to the Ergo meetup in Austin, and basically how great it was, because we got so many people that came that were thinking about maybe checking out Ergo, or heard about it, or didn't even hear about it. And they came there and they got to talk to other people in person, just face to face. And now I think we got a lot of new, really exciting members in the community that are proactive, that are creating content, that are out there, utilizing Ergo. They're creating mining rigs. They're building on Ergo. So again, this is what really grows the ecosystem organically, and I really hope that you guys can help myself and help us really accelerate that. So that is it from my end. What do you got for us, Joe?
We had our weekly developer update yesterday, and there's a lot of really neat stuff coming together in our ecosystem. On the wallet side, we have Babel fees being implemented by Nautilus. Mr. Stoffeg is working on a mosaic framework, which is really fascinating, and he's been dropping tutorials for dApp developers to potentially develop in a way that they can have their dApp pulled into his wallet. Ergo, our favorite developer cat, has come up with a new website that should be coming out soon that tracks the nodes and gives a kind of a P2P snapshot of our network, which is awesome to see. And on the dApp side, we've seen development, across the ecosystem, a lot of neat ideas. A lot of people were excited about a new concept that's coming out called DuckPools.io, where they're going to try to put together collateralized lending on top of Ergo. The DEXI conversation and implementation is ongoing. So that's another core piece of, let's say, economic use tooling that potentially we can build a lot on top of. Rosen Bridge is still coming together, so that's exciting to watch. Just a lot of growth across the ecosystem. It's a good time. Markets are pretty much shitty, but inside the ecosystem, there's a lot of neat stuff and a lot of growth, which is great to see.
That is great. Definitely great. All right. I guess let's go to the questions. Should we?
Yeah, let's go for it. See what people have to say today.
All right. Let's see. Dan looked tired. Well, Dan just spent 6 hours at a cell phone store. The story for another time. So Dan is tired. Yeah, I'm not gonna put that one out, but just FYI, Dan is tired. You are correct, but Dan is still here for you guys, and Dan is ready to party. All right, let's see. Okay. Well, this is actually a really good question for the from Ergo Minnow, and it's a good question for you, Joe. Out of curiosity, what steps or initiatives does Ergo take to attract new developers? We were just talking about that right now.
Sure, I think probably there are two primary initiatives. One of which is Ergo Hacks, which is a really great way to bring developers into the ecosystem and also introduce them to our development community. The second is the EF does offer the potential for grants, and we do also, connect developers to some whales that also offer kind of a grant mechanism. We have one that's called the Goodwill Fund that, is a large actor that's pretty ergo-centric. I do know that like WapSwap, as an example, received some funding to try to get them to the point where they had a viable product. We also have Dark Fund Zero, which is more of a privacy-oriented group of characters that also offer grants. I think that the biggest thing that's needed for development is tutorials and documentation, right? As the barrier of entry gets lower, it becomes easier for people to pick up, let's say, coming into the ecosystem and building. And we have a lot of community developers that are, put out open source frameworks and tooling. That is absolutely huge. And I would say that as a community, the steps and initiatives I see there are highly impressive. And, I'm happy to do what I can to support the people that are creating those tooling frameworks. Now, on another side, we do have Deco, which has put together kind of an open source, community-driven, free grassroots college, you could call it, in terms of taking people from the level of a layman to understand, what is Ergo, what is a box, what are registers, and actually getting them into the coding side and how Ergo works. And that's been hugely successful. And I think a driving part of that is not just having information available, but it's also the community aspect where you come in and you have people there that you can bounce ideas off, ask questions to, find support, find community. And that ultimately, I think, creates a very different environment for, open source collaboration, which has been huge. So, independently, I don't think that's something that the Ergo Foundation can fully handle the lift up, but we have community with us that has really done an amazing job at putting these systems in place. Now, what will ultimately attract the most is probably market access and marketing. Ergo is still somewhat small, and in terms of like the grander, let's say, crypto environment, but Ergo script and the extended UTXO does have a elegance in terms of simplicity, and I think as people start to see and understand that, especially some of the oddities like with Ethereum based NFTs and just some weird stuff that exists that people just accept as normal, but there's some really strange side effects that can occur. I think having kind of the simple, elegant framework is powerful, but having the tools for people to understand, use, and then adopt that is also needed.
Yeah, that's it's not easy, but it's something that you reach a critical mass with, right? So attracting new community members, attracting new developers to the ecosystem. It's all about that critical mass. It just seems like it's slow at first, and then it just builds up, and before you know it, it's just a huge, robust ecosystem, and you don't have to try as hard anymore. But it's just a matter of taking those first 100 steps before you reach the point of the tipping point where you kind of feel like you're struggling. But it's all about consistency. It's providing consistent incentives for developers to come and use the tooling. It's consistent incentives, and I'm not talking about some sort of financial incentives, or although those those are also good. I'm talking just incentives in progress, right? So in progress, in interaction, all these different things that can be used to attract new people to the ecosystem. All these things, consistency is what is going to make things fly. So, all right. Well, we got a question here.
Can I add one more bit, Dan?
To
that question.
Okay, go for it.
I think the recipe for success is already existing. I've said this before, but it needs to be reiterated because it's important. One thing that I think the Ethereum development community did really well in bootstrapping Solidity was creating multiple open source frameworks, especially for like a long period of time. I can see them shifting towards more closed code nowadays, but basically building out the functionality. You have this new language, what is possible? And then how do you build it? How do you implement it? Making that open source. That really bootstraps development. Ergo script is still relatively new. And so as it is explored and new frameworks are discovered, having open source documentation and that information out there to allow new developers to come pick it up, improve, refine, it really creates the ecosystem necessary for real growth and adoption of that tool set. So I think we can follow that open source community driven recipe because there's a lot of evidence that it works. There's a reason why so many chains still pick up, we're EVM compatible. Why? Because they're basically piggybacking on all of the work that those open source developers did initially with the adoption of Solidity.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we have a question here from Christoph G. The question is, Ergo Oracle's V2 I feel is very underrated yet important. Should this be prioritized more to bring to production faster? Chainlink is the only game in town, and Ergo has huge advantages. Thanks. Well, I mean, we have Delphi, right? The Delphi is a really robust open source Oracle. It can be launched in a decentralized manner, and it's actually something that I'm looking to utilize at Zengate. So we have that. I mean, I would like to see more development to go into oracles, because there is, or at least into Delphi, because there is definitely a cross-chain, cross-ecosystem need for decentralized oracles. I know this for a fact because from speaking to different projects across the Cardano and Ergo ecosystem, as well as other ecosystems. What are your thoughts on this, Joe?
I'm going to steal something that I read from Louis Vatra from ErgoPad, because I think it's really relevant here. And sometimes it just is in software development, okay? And that is that it takes one woman 9 months to have a baby, right? Well, if you get 9 women, it doesn't take 1 month. There are some things that they just have to go through kind of their process of evolution and growth. And, prioritizing it in some cases is quite difficult, to where 9 women, you still can't have a baby in a month. You still have to wait the 9 months. Then you got 9 babies, I guess. So we're not going to take it that far, but the the general point is sometimes these things simply take time and testing, and that's not something that you can really rush. And so there are some problems where, you can throw additional resources at it, and it actually accelerates the development and implementation of it. And there are other areas where if you throw multiple resources, you just create more confusion and congestion. So I do think that it is kind of underrated and incredibly important, but I think it kind of falls into the category of the 9 month period that it takes to have a baby. You can't rush that. Right. And I think that the only thing you're going to get if you try is problems.
Well, miracles do happen, Joe. Okay. Just not all the time. So it could be possible to have 9 babies in a month. We have the technology. Anyway, we'll talk about this later. And so CIA Steve says, and some of you know who CIA Steve is, some you might not. He says that Joe confirmed he's leaving his fortress. Yes, he has, CIA Steve. Yes, he has. Now let's see if it'll come to fruition. All right. Let's see. Let's find us another nice question. All right. Well, here's a good question. So this is a question for me, but also Joe, please dive into this one as well. So question for Dan: what is the most valuable peer group for Ergo to target? How can community help to bring more customers in? So, okay. I don't know if this is going to be satisfying to you, but I don't really feel like there is one valuable peer group. It depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking about tooling, then it's the proactive devs that are basically looking for alternatives to Ethereum. And again, this is quite obvious, but then again, it might not be. It's the people that are going to the BNB chains and the Solanas and the AVAXs of the world because they're looking for robust tooling, or at least they think they can find that robust tooling over there. They won't, but they think they can. And even going to Cardano, but Cardano is a different, it's a different animal than the other guys, I think. And those are the guys, right? So those are the guys that are, or guys, the people that are focused on delivery, right? They're not married to like one thing, and they just won't move off of it. It's like, oh, Ethereum. Those guys are difficult to work with. Okay, those guys will come around, but really digging in and putting in resources for those guys, the maxis, not a good idea. But there's obviously a big peer group, as you call it, that is actively looking for robust tooling in other ecosystems. One of the reasons why the Binance Smart Chain was so successful right off the bat when it launched. I mean, basically, it offered all this Ethereum stuff at lower prices. That's pretty much what happened. Same thing with Polygon. Polygon basically dropped lowered the fees. So those are the guys, right? Those are the guys, or I keep saying guys, but those are the people, because of course, we have female developers, and it's not about to me, it's not about who writes the code, it's about what's in the code, and if I can review and vet the code. So code is law. And as far as other aspects, right? So as far as businesses, bringing businesses into the ecosystem, I believe, and this is not, it's not limited to these small to mid-sized businesses, but I believe that Ergo is a perfect fit for small to mid-sized businesses because of all this different tooling, all this. I mean, a lot of this stuff is really easy to use, right? Some of this is pretty brainy. You need developers on there, but a lot of this stuff is really easy to use. And so I think that if we build enough dApps on top of Ergo that target these smaller enterprises, we will get a big influx of people using Ergo because it just works. It works. It's really scalable. It's really it's really robust. Yet it's we can pivot things. It's proof of work, so it's all about the work, right? Securing the system is all about how much hash power you have, how much work you put into it. It's very mathematical, very easy to wrap your head around versus proof of stake, which would take more time to explain and for people to understand. So yeah, that's what I think. If you're talking about commercial groups, I think small to mid-sized businesses would be the ones that could utilize Ergo the best. Although I do believe Ergo can be adopted on national scale, and I believe that it will definitely happen in the very near future. And as far as devs, yeah, the devs that are basically looking for the bigger, better deal, BBB, and they're looking for that perfect combination of tooling and functionality and security, which they will find with Ergo. What are your thoughts on this, Joe?
I'm going to answer the second part first because I think it's probably most important. How can the community help to bring more customers in? I think one thing that the Ergo community does really well, that I hope it always continues to do, is education. When you have a variety of users in the blockchain space, some of which are pretty experienced and they're good at figuring out their own assumptions and looking at how things work, understanding their risks, and operating in these environments. And then you have some people that I'm just going to say need training wheels, right? They need some help. Maybe they're not quite ready to interact with these ecosystems or really take the time to say, okay, well, there is always some risk involved. What does that look like? How does this work? And that can be, from DeFi to, NFTs to really any aspect of the ecosystem. Having the community there as a way to create feedback, answer questions, be involved in educating users on, basically the assumptions they need versus, saying, hey, buy higher than I did. Yay. There's a lot of that in crypto. It's easy to find, but actually having a community that tries to ensure that things are built the right way and that users, use things in a way that protects them is somewhat unique to the Ergo ecosystem. And I've always been kind of proud to see that. What is the most valuable peer group for Ergo to target? Ooh, that's a good question. I would say miners, but the problem with targeting miners is it has to do with profitability, right? I think that having, as ETH moves towards proof of stake, there's a huge amount of infrastructures, miners, which are ultimately users out there that are going to be looking for proof of work alternatives. And, a post EIP 27 mining profitability is kind of shitty. And unfortunately, we're in a macro environment that has, let's just say, had, some pretty negative trends since EIP 27 came out. So it's taken some time for profitability to balance. Mining, at least right now on my end, is not very profitable. I'm doing it anyway, but I do think that eventually that will rebalance. And, on our side, opening market access would certainly assist. But that's a core group of users that, I think is really a diverse community, to where you get some miners that are just security, some are going to be security plus users, and some are going to be security plus user plus developer. And ultimately bringing in that core aspect of the community just creates a bigger foundation for us to build everything else in the network on. So I do think that that's probably the most valuable peer group short term. The problem is you can't gimmick or bullshit your way into attracting miners. I can't sing and dance for them and say, oh, join Ergo, it's really fun. At the end of the day, it's a business, right? And so it's a matter of us finding the right incentive in terms of the hash rate and pricing, and then creating an environment of growth.
So you can't sing and dance for them? Why not?
It's just not why they're there, right?
But you could try, Joe. You can always try to sing and dance, okay? Just look, don't be so gloomy, okay? Singing and dancing can always help, especially from
you. And I'd have to have a couple drinks in me to be singing and dancing around. And well, it's 7 a.m., so it's just not going to happen.
Well, just as long as you don't dance around with your chainsaws, because that could be dangerous. Anyway, let's that sounded kind of creepy. Let's decreepify. And let's go to, there's a nice question from David Oliveira. So +1 for this community. Yes, plus 1,000 for this community. It's an awesome community. And a question for Dan, as a strategic advisor, what problems needs to be solved for our organizations to be more competitive? Well, are two main things, and one is, as I always said, and I said it many times, more commercial adoption. We need more commercial adoption. That is the reason why I started Zengate, to bring this commercial adoption, to be able to be proactive in this. But I cannot do it alone. We need to do it on a massive scale. I know it's already being done. We just need more. We just need more commercial adoption. I think Ergo is ready. Ergo is pumped. Ergo has a lot of value to offer for commercial adopters. So there's no reason for more people not to build businesses on top of Ergo and to streamline more commercial adoption of Ergo. I would say that well, I wouldn't call it a problem. I would say that a challenge that I have faced with Ergo as an ecosystem is to kind of have more focused workflows because pretty much everybody does it out of love. And what happens when you do that, a lot of people just kind of do what they want to do, and that is great. But our ecosystem is not that big. So it's not easy to really say, okay, so all these people can do their thing, and that's cool. But this group of people needs to follow a specific pathway that would accelerate the system. And we do have the core team constantly pushing out updates. We have, say, the Rosenbridge team creating this awesome software stack. We have other really, we get Delphi team. But again, I'm just trying to put more order without centralizing things, because that's one thing I don't want to do is centralize anything, but I want to have more organization without centralization. And another, I guess, challenge which we're going to overcome, guys, is a lot of Ergonauts are shy. You guys are shy. You guys just want to sit there and build, and that is awesome. But we need to go out and meet people, guys. We need to be out there meeting people. I know it's not everybody. I know some people are like, well, what about me? I'm not shy. I'm not saying everybody's like that, but I just noticed a lot of people are like that. They create really cool stuff. They know a lot. They have a lot to say, but where they're just they kind of they are behind in a non-handle. Again, nothing wrong with that, but I'm just saying we have a lot of that. Like, for example, I'm trying to get people out to this convention, and I thought it would be easier. I thought it would be easier to convince people because it's just such a low cost of entry into this, and we negotiated really great deals with them, and they're very, very bullish on Ergo, the organizers. And I still have to kind of convince people. It's like, come on, you need to be there. This is your chance to show off what you have. Like, oh, I don't know, maybe I'll just come around, I'll just hang out, but I don't know. I'm like, just come, just show off your stuff. You have great stuff. And this is, it's not one conversation I'm pointing to. I mean, I had several of these conversations already, and you guys know who you are. But we just kind of need to get past the shyness and start really being proactive about going out there, especially now that we're past the whole COVID thing. Just going out there and interacting with people and really showing them what Ergo is about. That's that's about it. That's about it for me. Do you, Joe, want to add anything? I mean, from your perspective, what do you think is kind of challenging about the system?
One of the things that Dan said to me initially that I still think is quite just funny is he said, Joe, when I look at the Ergo ecosystem, it's like the smart kid in the back of the room that can't get a girlfriend.
It's kind of true, though. I mean, look, we'll get your story, we'll get you a really nice girl, okay? But you need to come out of your shell.
Now, from like a development perspective, because I know David, is pretty active in that sense. Ultimately, I do think that blockchains will just ultimately become kind of like a back-end system, right? And we're still figuring out the functionality and full use case of what that backend is capable of. And like to developers, it's immutable, and once you spin up the logic, it kind of runs itself without needing too much maintenance. And it has a built-in user base. It has a built-in system of accounts, system of tracking. There's a huge use case for that. So I do think that ultimately, in the long arc, the backend, will be like any other backend, and it'll kind of fade away from the front end user's awareness or even perspective of what backend they're interacting with. But we need, to really explore the functionality and the scalability of that backend in order to support that type of adoption. So to some degree, the longer arc to really see adoption of blockchain technology, in my opinion, is kind of silent and I don't know, let's just say nerdy, man. But yeah, in terms of the crypto market and adoption as it is, we could definitely grow in market perspective and market access.
Yeah, well, look, you are right from the technology side, but you know that blockchain and crypto are special like that. People come for the community as well as for the tech. And our community is awesome, but some people just want more interaction. I think that if we have more interaction, if we have, we get Ergo out of its shell and send it to a few parties and maybe, get it a little drunk, it will do song and dance for us, Joe, and attract new miners. You'll see, Joe. We'll dance for miners. And then they're gonna be like, all right, guys, we're spending $1 million mining Ethereum, but screw it.
You mean miners like the blockchain, Dan? You're gonna get me in trouble. Dance for miners.
Yeah, no, I said miners, not miners. Yeah, me and Joe were having this conversation before we started filming. It's some of you might know this movie from back in the 90s called Galaxy Quest. It was a satire on Star Trek, and there's this part where they're near a mine, and these little aliens come out, and then one of the guys is like, that must be the miners, and then Tony Shalhoub says, yeah, they look like they're 12 years old, and Alan Rickman says, I said miners, not miners. Anyway, that's funny, but I'm the only one laughing. But a lot of people are laughing at that too. You know what I'm talking about, guys. Come on, it's Galaxy Quest. Joe says he vaguely remembers it. It's a freaking class. Come on. Galaxy Quest. Come on. Anyway, we'll talk about this later, Joe. In fact, we might have a screening of Galaxy Quest at NFT Con in Las Vegas when you come out from your mountain castle of chainsaws and whatever else. All right, well, let's see. We had actually a nice question here from Philip. So what are you considering the possibility to extend your current POW consensus mechanism to support using a proof of useful work consensus? Could imagine that this would also benefit PR stuff. What are your thoughts on that, Joe?
Yeah, well, I'm going to give, let's say, an answer. In terms of directly plugging it into Ergo, in my opinion, that is a bit dumb. And I'm going to tell you why. Okay. Everyone wants to be the first over the hill, right? We want to lead the pack, but the reality is sometimes first over the hill is first on the spear on the other side. And the spear on the other side of proof of useful work is the ability for miners to say, hey, either one of two things is going to happen, okay? Either there's going to be useful work that is subsidized, right? Where there's no incentive for the miner to actually do it. They just do it for PR purposes. And so they're not actually making a return on that part of their hash rate. So there's going to be an incentive there for users to miners are going to try to exploit that. Basically, they're going to say, hey, you just gave me a light, basically a hash rate lock. And if I could turn that off, my GPUs are more profitable. So there's going to be an incentive to exploit the mining software. And one thing I would say is a general good idea in this space is don't fuck with miners, because they will figure that out, right? On the other side, if it's incentivized, there is a question: how do you do that in a decentralized way? Like, if I plug in a company that is going to be paying my miners, who's going to be the one that manages that business? And how is that decision going to be made? And what happens if I were to build an entire network around one aspect of useful work with an incentive, and then that external party went bankrupt, right? That's potentially a big problem, because then my miners lose revenue stream and I have to replace that as a incentive. So in my opinion, I'm very much on the fence, like, hey, there are big questions here that we need to figure out, because if there's no incentive, there's a problem with miners exploiting it. If there is some external market, how do we run that? How do we govern that? What's the external risk, right? But I'm also somebody that says, hey, being that this is relatively new, it's something that I'm interested in. I think it's worth research development. And I think it makes a lot of sense as a side chain. But to plug that into the base network right away without proper implementation, testing, and making sure that it's solid is somewhat suicidal. I mean, I get that the PR benefit is it's going to be great, and people are going to say proof of work's finally green. Well, number one, I think they're not, right? People that are the most environmentally friendly are never going to say, hey, this is great. They're always going to say it's, could be done better and it uses too much energy. And so I don't think that it's even going to really change that narrative. But the trade-off is, you create massive, just unknown risk, whether it's external, source of revenue that, creates a dependency, or you basically turn an element of your mining community against you, and they will probably, exploit it if it's possible. So I think it's a good research project. I think it makes sense as a side chain, but to plug it right into the main network to say, hey, we're green, when an audience is that is the most like anti-proof of work is not going to care anyway, doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, neither does paying miners, Joe. That's illegal.
Gotcha.
Got ya. All right. Let's get us another nice question here. We got a lot of questions coming in. Okay, well, this is a nice question that can really, be useful for all, anybody new who's joining. Andrianto, I'm sorry if I'm butchering your name, says, always appreciate the weekly AMAs, Dan and Joe. And we appreciate you for checking us out every week. We appreciate all of you who join us every week. So can you explain about Ergo smart contract, real world use cases in short term and long term? So again, I think that's a nice question for Joe. What are your thoughts on that, Joe?
So where are we today in terms of Ergo smart contracts? I would say that right now we are still building out a lot of what I would call simple frameworks, right? And the beauty of, let's say, mastering simple frameworks is that, number one, you get pretty good at security assumptions, and you also create the building blocks for greater complexity. Now, if you were to ask the question, what does greater complexity look like midterm, and I'm even going to add long term here, I think there are two aspects of it. The first is understanding like the registers and verification that occur in Ergo contracts. And I think that there will be a dual progression where you do have the, let's say, advancement in complexity in terms of the let's say, multi-stage verification aspect of Ergo script, but also the off-chain verifications. I think that we'll see a lot of off-chain complexity come about as Ergo evolves in the long term. And then you get into really interesting use cases because, in essence, you're able to run a lot more complex logic. But being where we are now, I think that it's a matter of setting solid foundation and really building out solid, simple, well understood use cases in smart contracts that don't create too much complexity yet. I think that is ultimately coming, but you build the foundation of a house before you build the roof, right? So I think that we are still early in terms of the adoption and use case of Ergo script and extended UTXO in general. But I do think longer term, we're going to see a lot more complexity. And by the time we get to that layer of our level of complexity, it'll probably be a lot simpler because we have the documentation and tooling of basically everything that is new and revolutionary today. Give it some time and it will be just common knowledge and practice.
Yeah, good breakdown there, Joe. Actually, there's a quick question here. So, any idea why CoinMarketCap shows the wrong market cap for Ergo? There are several different reasons, but I am working on fixing that, guys. So
that's something we have pinged them and emailed them and dropped their support so many goddamn times. The problem is there are so many new cryptocurrencies in this space that I have to ask the question: has their team really scaled with that? And the answer is probably no. So
they probably scaled down because of the bear market. I mean, they scaled down. All these guys have scaled down. So what took a month before now takes 6 months.
Yeah, we're in their inbox like too many times, but I guess they haven't dug to that level yet. It's painful we even have had exchanges contact them and be like, hey, you have the wrong market cap, you have the wrong emission, you need to adjust, and for a long time it was like, you're not showing the functionality of our system. Well, they're buried, is the bottom line, and hopefully as they unbury whatever their workload is, they eventually hit us.
Yeah, and like I said, I am also working on it from my end. Maybe I could kind of cut through some red tape through my Rolodex of peeps. We'll see, guys, but yeah, working on it. Work in progress. So this is a good question, I think, and actually I think Joe enjoys answering this kind of stuff because I heard you answer this very passionately before. So POW catches a lot of flack these days. There are various arguments for POW. What are the most powerful arguments for POW in your opinion? So Joe, I've heard you speak on this. So why don't you kind of lay it out for us?
Okay, so the best benefit of proof of work that is the least popular with any regulatory agency is that coin creation is anonymous, right? So if I'm going to be a miner, I can download open source software and I can contribute to consensus and I get the initial emission of a token. And I don't have to give my identity to anyone. I don't have to KYC anywhere. And I am going to be able to provide a decentralized service absent any identity, right? And that is open. If I have the hardware requirements and an internet connection, I can sit anywhere in the world and I can contribute and essentially earn an income of tokens. Now, that is not something that I think proof of stake can fully replicate. You either need to have existing crypto, you need to have some kind of lazy mint NFT, which is a very, very, very small market relative to proof of work, or you need to buy it on an exchange, right? And that requires KYC. So in terms of crypto being anonymous, proof of work does, crypto literally means hidden, right? So in terms of like that barrier of entry into market, I think proof of work is better. Now, does that come with trade-offs? Sure, it does. I'm not going to be someone that says proof of stake shouldn't exist, and we need to call in Big Daddy to regulate in my favor, right? I think that's ridiculous. But I do think that the other aspect, aside from having basically the anonymity aspect of participation being free and open, is a zero rate market, which is backwards to how crypto people generally think. But if I create an asset, right, and I create some store of value, and it has a programmability to where I have the potential to earn a return, coming into a market that doesn't have a built-in mechanism of either inflation or return creates a lower barrier of entry for me to build something that's potentially profitable. So if I could build something in proof of work that is organic, it's open source, it's use driven, and it offers 0.1% return, I'm outperforming the market rate of proof of work, which is 0, right? And so I think that creates an environment where if I can build something that actually, not one of these APY driven madhouses that we see sometimes in crypto, but something that's actually based on use, right? If I could overcome the barrier of 0, there's an incentive for people to use it. If somebody can, overcome whatever my return is based on use, and it's still incredibly low, there's an incentive to use it because it outperforms the market rate. Some tokens have an insane market rate where, if I had like a 20% APY in reality, right? Number one, how do I create a product that creates that type of return regularly? I'm outperforming basically every financial asset that exists in the traditional world at that point. At that point, it's like, I don't know, loan sharking, right? But good luck getting, all of your lending back in loan sharking, but that's essentially loan sharking rates, right? It's not necessarily a broadly sustainable business. It's more of a short targeted, you need a very particular set of actors that are willing to accept those type of rates, and you need no other, access in the market to do that. So 0 market rate is huge, and being anonymous out of the gate is huge. And those two things cannot be replicated in proof of stake. I'm never going to say proof of stake shouldn't exist and blah, da, 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 da. Those are just two things that proof of stake can't really replicate in the same way proof of work can.
Yep, and there you have it, folks. That's I know Joe's passionate about these subjects, especially, and great to hear this nice summation of just everything about POW and why POW. I mean, I think that each one of these have their own. Have their own use case. But yeah, absolutely agree with you on many of the things that you say about POW. I don't feel that it's obsolete. I don't feel like there isn't space for it, even with POS around as well. I don't think one is going to phase out the other one. It's just going to find its its market.
I think both have natural advantages and incentives, right? But they're different. They are different. I think proof of stake usually has more evolved governance, and that is quite interesting. And stake pool operators somewhat are kind of like mining pools, and having a really distributed set of that is interesting. So I think there are a lot of unique use cases. It's just a matter of, without trying to say, we're going to regulate you out of existence because that's good for my wallet. It's a matter of saying, okay, what are the natural incentives here? What can you do in one that you cannot really replicate in the other? And then how do you build an economy on top of that? Because it's built on its strengths rather than, I don't know, regulate them, daddy. That's pathetic.
Regulate me, daddy. Not regulate me, daddy.
Oh,
Yeah.
Pathetic.
You know who you're talking about. We know who we're talking about there. Well, I think we have space for one more. Now, this is not a question. This is actually a fact.
Uh-oh.
Ergo is hitting the gym hard and will surprise everyone with its strength soon. Yes, it will. In fact, I think we should read that in the Arnold voice. In an Arnold voice. Ergo is hitting the gym hard and will surprise everyone with its strength soon. Because we're going to pump it up. There's going to be a pump, and then we're not talking about the pump. But anyway, get to the chopper. And anyway, don't get me started. I'm gonna go on tangents here. And anyway, all right, guys. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you very much for joining us. Thanks for your questions. Thank you, Joe, for putting up with my nonsense for
Pleasure, Dan.
Anyway, all right, guys. Well, thanks, and we will be seeing you next week.